Hello friend! I am so excited to share with you today how I transformed the Miniverse Harry Potter Potions class kit into a one-of-a-kind celebration of Hogwarts. And this is the first of two I will make to use as bookends to showcase my Harry Potter book collection. I'll give you a sneak peek of the other bookend later in this video. I'm going to show you step by step how I turned the Miniverse Harry Potter Potions bottle into electric wall sconces, how to add the Hogwarts coat of arms to the repurposed tile floor, how I made the electrified glow-in-the-dark bubbling cauldron, and much more. Now the inspiration came as I was looking for bookends for my library. When I saw the shape of this one, it immediately reminded me of the arched walls of the Miniverse Potions class kit. I'd been struggling for months with how I wanted to use the pieces in that set, and look at this, it fits the arch perfectly. So let's get started. This is the floor that comes in the kit. It's numbered because they have tiles that they give you to glue down. When I flipped it over, I like the other side of the tile floor better. Trust me when I say I'm going to follow very, very little of the instructions that Miniverse gives you when building this kit. Now here's the original wall that Miniverse gives you for the kit. They want you to use the plain side on the inside of the classroom and then add the brick wall around the top of the arch. Oh, no, no, no. I like the Hogwarts logo, so I'm going to turn that wall around and use it on the inside. And the holes where the tile archway are supposed to go is actually where I'm going to put my wall sconces. I'm using the Felix Felicis bottles from the Harry Potter Potions collection. So I looked on Amazon and I found a nice bright LED lamp, and I really love the Victorian look of this. First of all, we need to use the base of the potions bottle vertically rather than horizontally. So we're going to have to reorient the way the bottle hangs. Time for modification. First thing we have to do is cut the holder from the base. Then, as you can see, the base is really long. So let's shorten the base by one length of the black, right about here. And this is how they're going to go back together so that the lamp will hang vertically. Next, I drill a hole so that we can thread our wires through. It's not really centered very well. You might do a better job, but it won't matter in the end. The cork that's inside the bottle is actually going to be really helpful, but it's too big. So let's cut the cork exactly in half. And then I'm also going to cut a slit right in the center of the cork, just about halfway through. And you'll see its use when we get a little further down in the build. Now I think this lamp is just adorable, and I really like how long the cord that comes with it is. It's going to attach to this AA battery pack, and before I go any further, let's test it to make sure it's actually going to work. I'd hate to build this whole thing and then realize it's not working. The company was very clever to hide the wires by painting them gold, but as I modify this lamp, I'm going to have to be very careful not to clip through those wires. We're going to trim all of this plastic filigree off, and as we do, we have to avoid those wires. The other thing that we need to do is modify the shade of the lamp. It's a tulip shade, and the way it flares, it's too wide to go inside the bottle. So, time to clip off the tulip part of the shade. Now, it looks like I'm absolutely destroying this lamp, and I guess in some ways I am, but trust me, it'll look okay in the end. I know this is not for the faint of heart. Once I've cut the flare off, it's a little bit rough, and so I got an emery board, and I used that to kind of sand down the rough edges. And now you can see that it's going to fit into our Felix Felicis bottle just perfectly. Time to cut off the filigree, and again, be very careful of those wires. And to get the big chunk of that filigree off, I bent that down, which was okay because that's the way the lamp is going to hang anyway once we put it inside the bottle. And let's make sure I didn't cut through any of those wires. Oh good, it still works. Now I still think the plastic shade looks a little rough, so I took a gold paint pen and I just touched it a little bit here and there just so that it would dress it up a little bit more. You really won't see too much of this because it's going to be inside the bottle, but every little bit helps. Now let's slide our light fixture into that piece of cork, and it only needs to go in about halfway. Once you get it secured, I just put one drop of crazy glue to hold it good and tight. And now you can slide it back into the bottle, and you can see the cork will hold it up and put that shade exactly in the center of the widest part of the bottle. And then I secure it with a little more crazy glue. Now once you put the bottle back on the holder, you can see it's a little bit loosey-goosey, and we need it to be pretty solid. I also wanted to make sure that I got the wires in such a way that I could hide them the best I could. Back to the crazy glue. One drop will do ya, and being careful to avoid to catch the wires, I put it onto the stand, and you want to make sure to hold it nice and level so that the bottle will hang straight down. Next, I did my best to hide the wires, get them just in place, and then I also secured them with a drop of the crazy glue. and then thread the wires through that hole in the base. And now you can see how it looks when it's all put together. Okay, here's the tricky bit. I started with crazy glue to put the light fixture to the base, but it didn't hold very well. My other favorite glue is called E6000. It's a clear glue that holds really, really strong, but it takes a while to dry. I had a little miniature book that ended up being just the right height that would hold the bottle exactly where I wanted it to be. So I taped it down, and you have to look at it from two directions, straight on to make sure the bottle is hanging straight, and also from the side to make sure that the bottle isn't tilting inward. Then you can put a little bit of that E6000 glue right where the joint meets and then just let it dry. Once it's dry, just thread your wires through and then tape the base to the wall, getting it exactly where you want it, and I glued it down with the E6000. Now I made 2 of these sconces, and once I got them both in place, it's time to wire everything together. You put all the red wires with the red wires and all the blue wires with the black wire coming off of that AAA battery pack. Once you twist them on, test them to make sure they work. I used electrical tape to hold the connections together, and then just regular old tape on the back as I was building it, just to make sure I didn't pull it all apart. I used the gold paint pen to cover any place that didn't match exactly and also cover any of the wires that were showing. And here's the reveal. They worked just great, and I think they turned out darling. Let's move on. I think the arch tiles make a terrific floor if you put 2 of them together, but you have to glue all the tiles in. This is the glue that Miniverse gave us in the kit. I don't know what this gray stuff is. It's a glue of some sort, but man, it smells very toxic, and I have no idea how long it would take to dry, so I decided I'm not using their glue. Let's use E6000. You just put a little bit in. It doesn't take very much to hold these little tiles in, and they're all numbered, so it's very easy to put together. Here's the finished archways, and now we have to glue these together to make our floor, again using the E6000. And here are the pegs that you're supposed to use to put them on the walls. This will make the floor unlevel when you're trying to dry it, so you have to turn it upside down so that it will dry level. While it was drying, I used my favorite AI tool, and I came up with what I thought was a really great coat of arms for Hogwarts. Using Adobe Illustrator, I made it just the right size, and I put it on a nice wood grain background, printed it out to the right size, and then completely covered it in a clear tape because I wanted to protect the image from the resin that we're going to use to secure it. I think it's going to look really good when it's nice and centered in that circle. This is copyright free, and I'll put a link in the description if you're interested in using this too. Resin has a mind of its own, so I had to tape it really carefully to the back, but even then that resin's going to seep through a little bit. So I started by putting the resin around the edge using a popsicle stick so that I made sure that it got all the way into the crack that goes around the edge. And as I cured it, I pushed down as hard as I could to make a good tight seal between the coat of arms and the tile. Once that was in place, I filled it up with clear resin, cured it, and I filled it up a couple of times in thin layers so that I would avoid as many bubbles as possible. Okay, let's talk about scale. One of the reasons it took me so long to figure out what to do with that Harry Potter classroom kit is because Miniverse just makes things in such a strange scale. I knew I wanted to put figurines in the bookend, and the Wizarding World magical minis are the best ones that I have found. Sorry, Ginny, but I'm only using Ron, Harry, and Hermione in this build. And maybe Scabbers. And these figurines stand just under 3 inches tall. And when I put them in place, I feel like that is just a really, really good size scale for this kit. In contrast, this is the table that Miniverse supplied in the kit. It's enormous, and it takes up most of the square footage of what they call the classroom. And when you include the full-size Harry Potter potions bottles, they're enormous too. These are children's toys, I understand that, but it just makes me laugh because I don't understand how you're supposed to include them in this classroom kit. Here are the shelves that are included, and again, look at the size of these potion bottles as compared to the shelves. I mean, they don't even fit. So, time to make our own table. Going back to the crate that the tiles came in we used for our floor, I think the top of the crate might make a nice tabletop, and I think it's about the right size. I'm also going to use the table base that came in the Harry Potter Potions collection, but when I did one, I felt like it was a little flimsy. Let's try 2, shall we? That's better. I think that gives it a little more stability and looks kind of cute. And these aren't the finished potion bottles from the Harry Potter Potions kit. These are the teeny tiny potions bottles that had the ingredients for the potions bottles. I know it's a little confusing, but these are the little teeny tiny potions ingredients. And these, I think, will make a perfect size for the bookends. I'm also going to use one of the cauldrons that came inside the Harry Potter Potions kits. These originally had the resin inside, but we're going to take the resin out and make it into an electrified bubbling cauldron. I wanted to upgrade the look of that table just a little bit, so I found some 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch square balsa wood that I decided that I was going to use to dress it up. Now, I didn't have a terribly sharp knife to cut this stuff up with, and then I wanted to glue the two pieces of the base together so that they would really stay nice and stable. Here's the top when I got the balsa wood on, and I think it's going to work out really nicely. I like the way that came together. This is the spray paint that I used because everything was a different color. So this is how the table looks once everything's sprayed all the same color, but it's kind of boring. So I wanted to antique it a little bit, and just using some burnt umber acrylic paint, I painted that into all the little creases and crevices, wiped the excess paint away so that it would only stay in the textured part of the table. And this is how the table looked once I got all the antiquing done compared to what it looked like when it was just spray painted. The detail that Miniverse put on the top of that crate actually helped quite a bit. The way the walls were built, they don't meet in the corner. And of course you can see the wires and the tape and everything from my electric in the back. So I wanted to make some shelves that were not nearly as deep as the ones that Miniverse provided in the kit. And I made a corner shelf that would come together and completely hide that back corner. Believe it or not, the 1/4 inch actually still holds all of those small ingredients potions bottles just fine. And I wanted the shelves to look aged and a little wonky, so they're not perfect. At least I'll use that as the excuse for how they came together. I used a dark walnut stain, and it's really simple. You just brush it on, wipe it off, and let it dry for about an hour. While that's drying, let's move on to the cauldron. I removed the handle, I removed the top, and if you use a flathead screwdriver, you can prise out the resin insert that's inside the little cauldron. Now, the cauldron may come apart in two pieces, but it's fine. It will go right back together with a little bit of glue. And here's where I show you that I don't always know what I'm doing. I put down a piece of clear tape, and I needed to trace around the top of the cauldron, so I used a Sharpie on top of this clear tape. I know better than this. What I needed to do was trace the top of the cauldron on a piece of paper, put that down first, then put clear tape over the top of it before I put the resin on, but I didn't do that, as you'll see. Now for the cauldron, I wanted to use glow-in-the-dark green pigment inside my clear UV resin. All I'm trying to do is make a green top for that cauldron that the light can shine through. While that's curing, let's work on lighting the cauldron up. I drilled a small hole in the bottom of the cauldron to feed the wires through. And again, I destroyed the light fixture. On this one, you even have to clip the base down pretty far, but at least you don't have to mess with the shade. To fill the cavity of the cauldron, I used aluminum foil, and that would help reflect the light because that cauldron is black as Voldemort's heart on the inside. And this is a good time to make sure that I didn't pull any of the wires loose, so I do a little test. This is why you don't put the Sharpie on top of the plastic tape. And yes, I actually had to go back and do this a second time. To protect the light fixture and make sure no resin gets down into the LED fixture, I put a circle of clear plastic tape over the top of the cauldron, and then I'm going to glue that circle onto the top of the tape. And now let's make it bubble. In the Miniverse Cafe Series 4, they have Halo Halo Mix, and it has perfectly round, clear white balls inside. Well, they work perfectly as the bubbles for my cauldron. So using some of the green resin, I put the balls up on the top, just kind of randomly, and cure them as I go. And I just kept adding resin and the little balls until I got just the way I wanted to. I wanted it to spill over the side and all the way onto the floor. Another addition to the bookends was a picturesque view outside of the windows. The bookend itself is going to be glued right where the window is, and I didn't want it to be just black, so I wanted to have a nice picture to look at. So again, using my AI friend, we mocked up a certain cottage on the ground of Hogwarts with a beautiful sky and some flying creatures running around. And you know, Hogwarts sits near a lake, and so we have a beautiful lake view. I did these again on Adobe Illustrator. I was careful to size these so that they would be just the right size for the windows, and then I just simply printed them out and taped them on the back. Now we're at the stage where we need to glue the bookend onto the wall. First, decide if you want this bookend to be on the right or the left. That's going to determine which wall you put the bookend on. And you'll see that there is a lip. The wall sets in just a little bit. That edge needs to be glued to your bookend, and it will create a separation, but for some reason it still works out for me, because by gluing the bookend to that edge and then also gluing it at the very top worked out just fine and didn't cause the bookend to rock or to make it unstable in any way. One of the last pieces that I wanted to make were some crazy potion bottles, and I still wanted to use some of the glow-in-the-dark pigment. I thought I would test a new way of doing a splash. I used a toothpick and just a twist tie, and I twisted it around the toothpick, and then I used glow-in-the-dark paint, both in a magenta color and a purple, and painted the resin onto the twist tie. Now, I believed that as I went along, if I painted a little and cured it, and then put another coat on and cured it, that eventually I could build up enough color it would cover the white part of the twist tie. That ended up being true on the magenta, but not on the purple. Magenta is much more opaque for some reason than the purple ended up being. Even on the splash, you can see magenta is more opaque than the purple is. I'm not sure if this is the amount of powder that I mixed into my resin, or if it's just the nature of these colors. If you'd like to learn more on how I do my splashes, I'll leave a link in the description below on the video about the koi pond that I did, where I show you how I do that. Once I finished my potions bottles, it was just time to put it all together. And it was so much fun gathering all these little bits and pieces. It's mostly pieces from the Harry Potter Potions collection and this kit. There are some pieces from Honeydukes. There's even a few pieces from kits like the Botanicals and some of the other Miniverse. There are things that I made myself, like the Marauders map and some of the books. But overall, it's mostly Miniverse pieces that I just gathered and used in unique ways. So I'm curious to find out, which piece do you like the best? And what would you add? Because I know you guys are so clever, you can come up with all kinds of wonderful ideas for this. I hope this video gave you some ideas on how you can use this classroom kit. And remember, there's another bookend to be made. Here's a little sneak peek at what it might be. I hope you liked this video. Please hit the thumbs up if you did, and be sure and subscribe so that you don't miss the other half of this bookend set. It was such a pleasure to bring this video to you today. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.